We came out of the warp at the Mandeville point, unexpectedly and quietly as always. It was only a stop-off on a dozen jump journey or more. As per standing procedures, we did our diligent duty and scanned the system briefly. The chatter was considerable. The system was in peril. Raiders. And not any raiders. Some of the most hated beings in the galaxy were running amok on the manufactorum world of Praxis. According to the pleading Vox Hales, they had fallen on the world in the dead of night, had made its halls and corridors an abattoir, were still there even now, torturing and butchering all they could find. Going from one hive to the next, they were not merely culling our people like cattle. They were taking vast swathes of them through portals in the air. I could think of perhaps 2 score xenos races it might be, but then the Hales clarified. It was them. Fast and nimble, elongated limbs, horrific floating metallic monsters, creatures with no feeling of pain. It could only be the twisted raiders of the Eldar. I once had a very frustrating conversation with a biologus and an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor. They stated that the Xenos were often as complicated in their politics as we humans. I blanched, of course, the comparison not sitting well with me at all. My bile rose. They confabulated that they believed that there were different wings of the Eldar race, some almost benign, some terrible. I asked one simple question. Just the one. What is the factor that changes what they call the almost benign Eldar into the slavering scum that fall on our worlds and spirit away any that they do not torture and butcher? Silence reigned as they looked at each other dumbfounded. I nodded and barked my response. Then it doesn't matter. If you cannot tell me which is which and why, how they turn from one to the other, they are and always will be just another Xenos threat. One I will exterminate. And if I ever come across one of the blind Eldar factions, as they call them, then I will visit upon them the kind of mercy their brethren have visited on us. For as we approach the planet, we can tell that almost half of the hives have already been cleared, already been culled. All of them. Billions of our kind. Every single last planetary defense force center is gone. They thought there was no one to gainsay them. But, Xenos filth, you were in for a surprise today. With the greenskins teem in their multitudes, the slaught come fast, hitting home and then holding. The Hrud migrate en masse. These ones, the Eldar of any stripe, are utter cowards. They rely on speed, you see. Traps, ambushes, hit-and-run raids. They never stand and fight. Ever. And usually they can run rings around near anything the Imperium can put against them. The guards are slaughtered wholesale, the sisters smashed by their beasts, the scions outfoxed and assassinated, the knights ignored and moved around. But not today, Xenos. For they now face the sons of Lionel Johnson, the fighting first. And we know all about speed. Perhaps not to the extent of the sons of Jagatai, the White Scars. But we have our hold on it too. For amongst our number are the Raven Wing. And we shall fall on them as they fell on the populace of Praxis. As our battle barge and its escorts power towards the planet, we ready ourselves for our assault. With no Xenos fleet in orbit, we know that the scum are using their despicable webway technology to both arrive and to reap slaves from our people on the planet. So we have to hit hard and fast. Make sure we punish as many of them before they scuttle back into their dimension. And so we do. Our fleet reaches high orbit on the dark side of the planet, where they are enjoying themselves. And within 2 minutes, just 2, every single one of our Raven Wing is already falling towards the surface. Their land speeders' anti-gravity plates not enough for true flight, as if they only turn on when near a large structure or planet. Our speeders will never hit the ground. But at the present we fall nose down and as fast as we can, hitting the thrusters as soon as we pass the highest altitudes, and the burn is suddenly worth it. And we can instantly see them. With our augmented Auspex arrays on the Talon Master's speeder, we can see them. We split into 4 wings, all preparing to hit from one of the cardinal points of the hive, the one the eldar scum are tearing asunder as we approach. 3 groups hug the ground so low that none inside the hive could spot them. The one tendril of our thruster comes in high, is covered by the might of an icon. A dark inky pool obfuscates us from the foe, as we are under the aegis of the dark shroud. We can see the small silhouettes of their bird-like killers on bikes circling and then swooping down to slay our kind. No longer. We hit. The Talon Master has detected damn well all of them and given us our vectors. The upper spires are the target of our storm speeders' hail strikes, their fusillades of fire filling the skies. The bird-winged monstrosities try to evade, using their speed and agility, but it is to no avail. Perhaps, if we only had land speeders, vengeances and shrouds, it would be different. But we have more now. So much more. Our Primaris brethren unleash their firepower and the difference is telling. Fragstorm grenade launchers are used to create flak that forces the bird-like scum into alleyways in the air. Their lies and supple, but practically unarmored. Thus Fragstorm grenades would rip their wings to pieces and send them to the ground. But as they evade the explosions, they are then gunned down by the onslaught Gatling cannons and iron hail stubbers. Unprepared as they are, herded by our expertly coordinated forces, these eldar scum start falling out of the skies as plentifully as the shell casings we eject. It is a beautiful sight to see. In the mid-tiers, there are eldar now shooting out at us with their vile weapons. Fewer hit, fewer still actually harmed, as most of it is small arms fire. Reeking patches of liquid strike our vessels as the degenerate eldar attempt to strike the pilots and gunners but fail. A bark of blackness streaks into the air at points and damages or brings down one of our craft, but these are few. We are the most skilled aerial combatants in the Astartes. We know how to jink, how to barrel roll and evade. These xenos are used to fighting people who move in slow motion compared to them. Ha! We are Astartes. We are on a par. We are fast, and they are not prepared. Our Stormspeeder hammer strikes and vengeances take to tearing apart the spires that house these knots of xenos. When one flies in, they unleash their crackstorm grenades to dazzle and maim, then fire hammer-strike missiles at a distance, finally whipping in and eliminating entire floors of the spires with their melter destroyers. The small arms fire coming from the spires is all but silenced, as our land speeder storms then land and disembark scouts to hunt the remains in the dark. And finally, on the ground, where their floating monstrosities abound, our storm speeder thunderstrikes take their toll. Storm Fury missiles, Liar's Talons and Icarus pods are fired down with rage. When a second pass occurs, supported by the Vengeance models with their plasma storm batteries, there is little left. Eldar jet bikes are now being chased across the skies, annihilated as they fall into well-coordinated traps of ours, and their avenues of escape they find covered by well-positioned speeders. And within only an hour, smoke billowing, the ground's now clustered with enemy dead to match those they had slain. The battle is over. What remains of the vermin are hunted down via our Auspex, or are known to have removed themselves from the world via their gates. They will not come back here. The Eldar are cowards, and in the Emperor's name, one day I hope to be there to watch the light die in the eyes of the last one of them. For in all the galaxy, there are none as hated as the Eldar. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important factions, forces, and war gear of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And if you are a regular listener, then I would ask you to check that you are still subscribed and have notifications on. If not, then do consider subscribing, as then you will not miss any ongoing narratives, if that sort of thing appeals to you. I am practically a single operator, with support from Mrs. B, of course, finding good backing tracks to use, so please do forgive me if this is not as professional as perhaps the sound might imply. I am just one chap trying to do my best writing, voicing, editing, and creating as much as I can for you. So, please do forgive any slight errors. And today, we are to take a brief look into one of the many items of war gear that are utilized by the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. They add a flexibility and swiftness to the Space Marine forces that make their shock and awe strikes possible. For many will consider that the Space Marines should act like heavy infantry in more conventional situations, but this is not the case. Their weapons are swift assault and decapitating strikes, never deployed to any war zone for long, for that is the role of the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum, so they rely on speed as much as they do their power armor or magnificent arsenal of weaponry. And it is in this particular war gear that we see the way in which they can be almost anywhere and everywhere on a battlefield at the drop of a hat. Of course, I can only be speaking of land speeders. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, the Land Speeder. The Land Speeder is a light anti-gravity vehicle which serves as the primary reconnaissance, scouting, resupply and fast attack vessel of the Imperium of Man's Adeptus Astartes. The Land Speeder is based on a standard template construct, or STC, that was recovered early in the 31st millennium by the techno-archaeologist Arkan Land during his famous expedition into the Librarius Omnis on Mars, which we really will discuss at one point. Land's speeders, later known simply as the Land Speeder, was soon widely produced and used throughout the Imperium of Man by the various Space Marine legions and the Imperial Guard. The use of Land Speeders by the Imperial Army's successors, the Astra Militarum, was gradually phased out, as over the millennia since the Land Speeder's rediscovery, the plasma and anti-gravity technologies required to manufacture it became increasingly rare. As such, only extremely resource-rich Imperial planets or Adepta, such as the Forge world of Ryza and of course Mars, and the Space Marines can afford to create and utilize them. The Land Speeders fielded by the Space Marines employ this ancient technology to skim above the ground at breathtaking speeds. They use anti-gravity repulsion plates to perform breathtaking maneuvers that conventional vehicles would find impossible. The grav drives of Land Speeders do not function at high altitudes, but they can be used to perform a controlled descent suitable for deployment via overflying Thunderhawk gunships. On the battlefield, Land Speeders are often deployed in squadrons of 3. Land Speeders are fast response units, quickly dropping down from orbiting transports to add their firepower to the Space Marines forces deployed on the ground. The Land Speeder is not an aircraft, and is not capable of flight in the truest sense. While they are capable of reaching altitudes of up to 100 meters, they are more suited to skimming the ground. It is known that some Astartes formations, such as the Ravenwing Company of the Dark Angels, will use Thunderhawks to quickly and safely deploy Land Speeders while in atmosphere. The original Land Speeder had several different patterns, some of which are slower than others. These early designs were dropped from use completely, as they had only been used by the mortal soldiers of the Imperial Army, and the Land Speeder patterns used by the Astartes are far too fast and difficult to control for non-enhanced human reflexes. Role. Land Speeders can accomplish a variety of battlefield objectives, ranging from reconnaissance and scout deployments, to tank hunting and other seek and destroy missions. The Space Marine Land Speeder often acts as a mobile reserve vehicle, dashing forward to exploit weaknesses in the enemy line, or bolstering the Space Marines' attack where they need it most. Although lightly armoured, Land Speeders are heavily armed and versatile, able to carry devastating anti-infantry or anti-tank firepower. The Landspeeder Tornado is more heavily armed still, equipped with an additional chin-mounted heavy bolter to bolster its role as a mobile firebase. The Landspeeder Typhoon is another common variant, mounting a formidable missile launcher battery in addition to its crew-manned heavy weapon to break up enemy troop and vehicle formations from a distance. All of a chapter's Space Marines are trained to fight as Landspeeder crew during their service in close support squads, but the craft are usually piloted by the most daring of all, those who truly embrace the high speeds of which a Landspeeder is capable. Landspeeder pilots think nothing of skimming close to the contour of the land, threading between jagged rock spires, jinking through forests, or performing abrupt nosedives and barrel rolls to avoid incoming weapons fire. Considering the incredible mental and physical strain of achieving such bewildering maneuvers at maximum speeds, the fact that few Landspeeders are lost to pilot error can be solely attributed to the superhuman reactions, training and stamina of the Space Marines who crew them. The Landspeeder's main feature is its powerful anti-gravitic field emitting ventral plates that allow the vehicle to move without touching the ground, and to glide if dropped from orbit or off a high structure. How these plates work is a mystery to all but the most senior and high-ranking members of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It is believed that mankind once made much wider use of anti-gravity technology, like the eldar, during the Dark Age of technology. Yet in the late 41st millennium, or later, it is almost a lost art. While the xenos, eldar and tau make use of far superior anti-gravitic technology, it is forbidden for any magos of the machine cult to study these devices, and any court doing so usually receive the harshest sanctions. The anti-gravitic plates of the Landspeeder are positioned around the vehicle's nose and cockpit, and when they are activated they create a powerful inverse gravitic field, which is repulsed by natural gravitic forces, and thus pushes the vehicle upwards. The vehicle is given forward motion by a set of afterburning ramjets positioned on the rear of the Landspeeder. The Landspeeder is equipped with small stabilizing wings on its sides. The Landspeeder's anti-gravitic plates may be powerful, but they can only support approximately 4 tons, and thus the Landspeeder is only equipped with light armor. In truth, the power armor worn by the vehicle's crew usually provides better protection from the enemy fire. The Landspeeder is generally armed with a single pintle-mounted heavy bolter that is operated by the vehicle's gunner. The heavy bolter can be switched out for a multi-melter, to give the Landspeeder better anti-armor firepower. The vehicle's weapon is mounted on an L-shaped rail system that allows the gun to fire straight ahead of the vehicle or to the left. And while this limited movement would normally be deleterious in most tactical situations on other vehicles, the Landspeeder's anti-gravitic propulsion system allows it to quickly turn the entire vehicle towards the gunner's target. There are some Space Marine chapters that use a slightly different non-named pattern of Landspeeder that is equipped with twin-linked heavy bolters in place of the single one. Landspeeder Storms. The Landspeeder Storm is a variant of the standard Landspeeder design, with much of the craft's rear armor plating removed to allow space for a small troop transport bay. The reduced weight of this design affords Landspeeder Storms even greater speed and maneuverability, with only a marginal sacrifice in offensive capability. Baffled engines and sophisticated sensor arrays make Landspeeder Storms the perfect transport for scouts. A handful of these skimmers can move multiple scout squads rapidly and quietly from one firefight to another, or can be used to seed its passengers in tactically advantageous positions around an enemy formation. The scouts who pilot Landspeeder Storms are expert at evading patrols, using their practiced cunning to ferry their battle brothers as near as possible to hostile forces without being detected. When the time for stealth has lapsed, the boarded scouts make use of the open transport bay to fire strafing shots at enemy ground elements. Each Landspeeder Storm also incorporates a Cerberus launcher and pintle-mounted heavy bolter, with which the vehicle's crew can lay down an explosive blanket of covering fire for disembarking scouts, or provide rapid response heavy fire support. The Dark Angels are renowned for having some of the most unique and powerful of all the Landspeeder variants in the Imperium. So let us look into these also. To quote, Landspeeder Vengeance. The Ravenwing have always sought more firepower to support their hard-hitting attacks. An answer to this quest came in the 36th millennium, with the discovery of the STC database for a strange type of land speeder. Its larger chassis and superior lift engines could house heavy weaponry, allowing it to mount the Plasma Storm Battery, a relic weapon long held in the armory of the Dark Angel's mobile fortress monastery, known as the Rock. Thus was born the Landspeeder Vengeance, a strike vehicle exclusively employed by the Dark Angels and their successors, the Unforgiven Chapters. In conjunction with the Landspeeders of the Ravenwing support squads, the Landspeeder Vengeance has proven its worth on the battlefield time and time again, able to keep pace with the fastest of the Ravenwing's vehicles and deliver devastating volleys from its deadly Plasma Storm Battery. The Ravenwing Dark Shroud is a variant of the Dark Angel's own Landspeeder Vengeance, and is used only by the Dark Angel's second company, the Ravenwing, and the similar formations of their Unforgiven successor chapters. The Landspeeder Vengeance's standard Plasma Storm Battery has been replaced with an ancient relic, an icon of old Caliban known as a Stone Guardian, or one of the 10 brothers of the Order that once stood within the fortress monastery on Caliban. The Dark Shroud then channels the arcane energies of the ancient relic and projects a field of impenetrable darkness known as the Shroud of Angels, swaying the Dark Angel's forces in a gloom that can swallow even the most potent of incoming enemy ranged attacks and protect the Unforgiven from harm. Those who have witnessed it at close range and felt its murky pall and lived to tell of it are disturbed forevermore. Of all the archaic relics deployed on the field of battle by the Unforgiven, the Dark Shroud is perhaps the most unusual. The Dark Shroud is a powerful icon of the chapter, and the Dark Angels will protect it with their lives. This archaeotech vehicle consists of a Landspeeder Vengeance, mounted with an ancient stone statue known as a Stone Guardian, an icon of old Caliban, or one of the 10 brothers of the Order. 10 such idols currently exist within the chapter's armory. These statues were some of the few barren remnants found amongst the ruins of the Tower of Angels, following the destruction of Caliban at the end of the Horus Heresy, and they were exposed to powerful warp energies during the catastrophe that tore that world apart. How such a device came to be is a tale that began with the planet of Caliban was engulfed and split asunder by a warp storm. Yet not all was destroyed, as the fortress monastery of the Dark Angels and much of the bedrock upon which it stood was protected by an ancient force field of prodigious strength. The collision of that storm with the indestructible force field, however, had many repercussions. Some contaminant leaked within the shield's perimeter, and the atmosphere within the domed field that surrounds the rock is, to this day, still crowned with chain lightnings and darksome squalls. Early in that catastrophic tumult, the Tower of Angels, the proud citadel that topped the largest fortress monastery of the Order, and subsequently the Dark Angels, had fallen in ruin. Although the Dark Angels would take the barren remnants of their homeworld as a base, they have never attempted to rebuild that wreckage above. Standing proud amongst the desolate rubble were some elements of their old fortress citadel that withstood the collision of unstoppable force and impenetrable shield. Amidst the debris there stood statues, carved from figures from a past age. Those stone eyes had seen the tragedy that had befallen the Emperor's First Legion, and they now glowed with mysterious power, imbued with energies released on that fateful day. The Stone Guardians were then taken into the rock and locked in stasis in their reclusium for years. It was not until the desperation of the Vendetta campaign that the Dark Angels at last felt compelled to unleash their arcane power upon the battlefield. Each statue was mounted upon the chassis of a Landspeeder Vengeance, with great cables siphoning off its esoteric energy and amplifying it, and a power field of unknown quality rippled outwards from those ominous relics and absorbed most forms of electromagnetic energy. The Ravenwing Talon Master. Mounted in a Landspeeder outfitted with additional Allspec scanners and Voxcasters, it is a Talon Master's role to direct the Ravenwing's fire, using his equipment to ensure no quarry can hide from them. They even identify foes seeking temporary refuge in dense terrain, revealing their locations to all Ravenwing warriors. End quote. And now, with the coming of Belisarius' Call, there are newer, larger, and more heavily armed land speeders added to the arsenal of the Astartes. Named the Storm Speeder, it has 3 variants with differing loadouts of advanced weaponry. They are built for 3 Primaris Marines to be its crew, instead of the standard 2 for a normal land speeder. Yet despite its heavier weight and increased size, and larger crew, the new Storm Speeders are every bit as swift and nimble as the older patterns used by the Astartes. Primaris alone can pilot these vehicles due to the sizes in question, as Primaris and Marines are indisputably of larger proportions than their firstborn brethren. Coming in the Thunderstrike, Hammerstrike and Hailstrike patterns. Here are their write-ups, though they are not extensive as of yet. A Storm Speeder Thunderstrike is a speedy tank hunter. Add this to your force if your opponent likes to use lots of heavy armoured vehicles. Your missiles and las talons will be tearing through them in no time. Weapons loadout: Storm Fury Missile Launcher, Thunderstrike las talon, and twin Icarus rocket pods. A Storm Speeder Hammerstrike bears weapons designed to bore through thick armour and destroy bunkers. Take this Storm Speeder variant if you are likely to be facing a dug-in foe with lots of fortifications to deal with. Weapons loadout: Hammer Strike Missile Launcher, Crackstorm Grenade Launcher, and Melter Destroyer. Melty. The Hailstrike is so heavily armed that it can annihilate entire swathes of infantry in fusillades of blistering projectiles. Speeding over the battlefield, its specialized loadout shatters charging formations and shreds barricades and defenses. A Storm Speeder Hailstrike adds fast-moving anti-infantry punch to your Space Marines collection. Choose this version of the Storm Speeder if you're going up against armies such as Orcs or Genestealer cults, or any force featuring lots of lightly armoured units. Weapons loadout: Fragstorm Grenade Launcher, Onslaught Gatling Cannon, and twin Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers. And it would not take a genius to work out that my favourite one is the Storm Speeder Hammerstrike, because it has melters on it. And there is no greater joy to this codger than to fire off as much melter shot as possible. Alas, my recent outings have been against Death Guard, and their pesky invulnerability saves have caused merry hell with my damage output on both occasions. And let's not even talk about disgustingly resilient. Whew, it's good. For I sometimes forget to give supplication to the lords of dice and luck, both Bonus Aventus and Nuffle. But it is in these strange situations that the fun occurs. With enough firepower to level a small city, I could not even remove a Diddy tank from the board for 2 turns. And it is here that I really enjoy myself the most, even when getting a rinsing from a force that I should literally be teabagging after a single round. It is the madcap fun of the improbable, for no battle was ever fought that was fair, and none can ever predict what will happen no matter the relative strength of the forces involved. Yes, we can say that if things are equal, one force will flatten another, but it is in the unlikely guardsman who holds out when all around are vaporized, still waving the flag and holding that all-important location, or the one berserk warrior who breaks the momentum of another charge, or that one land speeder that pops out of cover and then executes by melter, of course, something that was the linchpin of the enemy army, that makes the entire game worth playing. But of course, this is only my humble opinion. For everyone plays the game or reads the books or watches harmless but mildly deranged YouTubers for different reasons, and no part is any better or worse than others. There is no hierarchy in the fandom, for all are equal. A new hand can find something in the lore that every last old ghoul has missed, or simply not had the vision to encompass. So, no matter if you are a reader, a player, a painter exclusively, all are welcome in this great hobby. For it is just that, a hobby. So do try to remember that it is meant to relax you. Yes, even when you are online and chatting with others who may not hold the same opinion as you. It's just a game, just a hobby. So in the name of the Holy Throne, try not to take it too seriously. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. Hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to land speeders. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. If you see the worth in what we are doing, then do please also consider joining our Patreon, or giving the video a share if that is beyond your present scope. To be honest, I could do with some support for editing, to leave me more time to polish my little tales, and write larger pieces, which we all seem to enjoy. It would be a great boon. But maybe one day, with your assistance, this will be possible. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.